All right, continue on. Let's see if I can get through most of the rest of this chapter today. As always, make sure that you see you're following the syllabus to see where I am. We do skip around a little bit, so please make sure that you're in the right place. Not every single chapter is assigned, so you don't want to read any information unnecessarily. In this illustration here, right? Like we said, every bit of the things we talk about here, we try and have informed by research. So they did this simulation where you're essentially playing a video game and you're escaping out of a building that's on fire, and your goal is pretty much to get up out of there. But along the way, they put this in front of you, and again, so you got to go this way to get out through the fire. You helping dude get up, or you try to haul ass? Of course, so we're gonna say in a fictional way first, and then we'll put it into real life. What do you think you'll do? So what do you think you might do in this situation? He looks like, he looks in, pretty great distress there. Head bleeding and stuff. Looks like a pretty heavy boulder. You gonna help him get up?
I don't know, man. It might be like if it's a time limit and stuff and I need to hurry up and get out the building. If he's not like cooperating, like I'm like trying to hurry up and help him push it, I'm gonna hurry up and help him push it and then leave. So if he's not up, then at least I got the stuff off of him. That's all.
Absolutely. So it's like, okay, look, I'm gonna help you for as long as I can, but I can't be up here 10 minutes trying to help you get this boulder off. If both of us die, dog, oh no. So again, it's not an easy situation now. And this when we talking about the situations, right? If it's me, Jakira, I hope you're gonna wait a little bit longer, as opposed to if it's a stranger. Hell, if it's me, like, oh hell no. Peace, come up. Like, oh damn, I was gonna give you an A. So if it's me, I hope again, but the point being, if it's somebody you got some affections for, or that you identify with, you might help a little bit more. If it's an elderly woman, you might help her more than if it was a younger dude. The cultures that we come from have a huge impact upon whether or not we help. So there are some religions, for example, that pretty much are very much based upon altruism, like Christianity itself. The notion, again, the figure of Jesus Christ is noted for helping as many people as he can, regardless of their background, and not expecting anything in return. This philosophy is part of most world religions, but practicing it in a world that oftentimes lives in contrast to those values can be very challenging. In urban sociology, we talked about this. You see one of these bullet points here: cities. What do you think? And you may have gotten into this part in the text already, but what do you think is the author is talking about there? How do cities have an impact upon people's helping behavior? Or what do you think the author is saying in reference to this?
Well, since cities are more so like a closer in, so like Columbia would be like I guess the city or whatever you want to put it, like we have a little bit more interaction with each other. So it's like you may see somebody that, like in your area that you've seen like repetitive and stuff like that. So you kind of build some type of relationship in a way, or not even a relationship, but some type of familiar faces and stuff. And usually in the cities, if we can help people in the city, they can, keep pushing them out and getting them further. I hope that made some type of sense. It made sense in my head.
No, it made a lot of sense. Unfortunately, oftentimes that is not how it operates. In fact, it operates quite the opposite. But yes, you're right that in many cities, and particularly in many neighborhoods of the cities, there'll be people that you're very familiar with, but it will be impossible for you to know, even in Columbia, but I was going to say it will be impossible for you to know every single person in the city the size of Miami. So within that space, it kind of breeds like an atmosphere. Well, let me hear from Aisha first before I elaborate. Go ahead, Ms. Hainsworth.
I was just gonna say, just to add to that, like I know for like, say my hometown of Florence, we don't know everybody in Florence, but the culture is if you see somebody that's from Florence, you're most likely geared to help them because that's just what we do as
Absolutely.
people of Florence.
Absolutely. Yes. In smaller towns, it is much more likely for people to help each other out, even strangers, because it doesn't just mean that the people in Florence are so much gooder and better than everybody else. They might be. But the main thing is the culture that we're talking about here. That you would be looked down in Florence for not helping people in a way that just wouldn't be true of Chicago and New York. We're there, and let me be clear, this don't mean that people don't help each other in Chicago. Of course they do. Of course they help each other in Detroit, Philadelphia, New Orleans. But the culture is more kind of look out and do for yourself. Mind your own business. You have to be mindful about that. Because Maisha, if something is happening to you in Florence and you need some help, it's going to be different than if you move to Atlanta. And again, I do not want to suggest that people don't help each other, but you might have somebody from your neighborhood in Atlanta, but somebody that you don't know, maybe not quite as much. In our culture overall as a country is very individualistic, but in spite of that, we actually help each other a lot, and we'll talk about that in a moment. There's even some some of this is related to the fact, right, that if you're in a better position, if you're in a stronger position yourself, it puts you in a better position to help other people. So because we're in such a rich country, we're able to give a lot more help. But there's also a lot of studies that show actually that poor people help each other a lot more than rich people. We've talked about before about collectivist and individualistic cultures. The United States is very much an individualistic culture. You got to get it pretty much on your own. This is different from many cultures in Asia and Africa, pretty much the rest of the world, except from many European societies. But in spite of this, again, we don't want to overstate things when we try it, because again, we believe that we can measure any behavior. We can measure any behavior. And then when it comes to giving, and particularly things like charity, the United States ranks very high than a country like Liberia, for example, where they may want to give, but they don't have the resources that we do. This is not something that you'll be tested on per se, but just to give you some context when we talk about, cultures of helping. The final thing we want to talk about today are interpersonal influences. And this speaks to whom do we help? That in a certain society, or, if you're in a class and stuff, in grad school, is very much a culture where people got to look out for each other. I learned this, so we was in this grad school prep program, Jakira, when I was in undergrad. And a lot of my classmates were very stressed out during that experience. I would not be as much. So they'd be working 2, 3, 4 in the morning, killing themselves. I'd be at that time, I'd be watching Sports Center. I might have a 40 ounce or something in the lounge. I'm chilling. And they're like, Kareem, what the fuck? And then we go to class next day and I'm well prepared. I'm killing the game. And people became mad and resentful. And I'm like, what the hell? I'm just trying to, do my thing. Y'all should be happy. Y'all should be rah-rah me. But it's nah, dude, look, we are happy for you. We think that's dope. But can you help us and show us how to, execute this? And that was only so much I could do. At the end of the day, you got to have your own habits and discipline. But what it speaks to is that the culture that I did learn and adjust to, because it wasn't always like that by any means, Shakira. There are many times where I would come to need help. And I was like, what the hell? I don't know what the hell is going on. Maisha, how do you got this stuff all figured out? Help a brother out, because I'm finna drop out tomorrow. So you learn very quickly that the culture is a very, interdependent one. But within your grad school programs, you might not necessarily want to help everybody. So another thing that we want to look at in this section is, are some people more likely to receive help than others? Just your general thoughts. What do you think? What do you think about this? What do you think is the answer to this question? And a further question, what type of people do you think are more likely to get help? So what type of personal characteristics do you think may make a person more likely to get help? Two people need help, only one of them get it. How would you explain that, Maisha?
First of all, the people who get help are sometimes it's not even the person who needs the most help. Is okay, I would say first you could say physical characteristics. Sometimes you're most likely to help the person who looks better. And then the next thing I would say is the people who seem kind of most needy. Like if you see like a homeless man on the street, you're more likely to help him than a college student, you know?
Good.
Yeah.
Excellent answers. Excellent. Other thoughts that what we're looking for here, are there personal traits that make a person, and I give you some extra credit for that one because that's going to be some of the things we talk about in a moment. Are there certain traits that make people more likely to get helped? The physical attractiveness, I'll tell you for sure, research has shown that it's absolutely one. It shouldn't be, but if you need some help on the side of the road and you show a little bit more leg, Maisha, that's probably gonna get some more assistance than if you out there, dressed like a fine Muslim woman.
The way you're probably,
I'm sorry, go ahead, Jakira.
I was gonna say the way you're probably able to articulate things. So I would look at it more so from a financial standpoint. So like two college students, maybe one from a USC, even though they don't have anything on us, a USC student or Allen student, and they may have, have some classes or some courses that prepare them more. So maybe, being an interview or whatever, and this is for a grant or to get to grad school, and they're able to articulate different things that we probably have not thought of to do just yet. So I would say that, and
excellent.
I think it's something else, and maybe like physical, more so physical appearance, but like race, gender, all that stuff can like play a role in it.
Excellent. 2 extra credit points. The articulation is really important, and that don't just go in terms of schools. Like it definitely does in terms of like that going to this kind of institution as opposed to this type of institution may give you certain skills and background, but also like what you get from the home. That one of the things you want to be, I would encourage you to be mindful about when y'all become parents eventually, is teaching your children how to advocate for themselves, because that's a skill that a lot of people don't have. And advocating for yourself speaks to demanding things that you're entitled to, but also like, being able to articulate, hey, here's why I need help, and be able to like, because, much like we talked about in trying to persuade people to do things, right? That their skill sets, the way that you set up asking for help can have a huge impact upon things. You talked about, like college kids as opposed to homeless people. Another group that I also might compare, Maisha, like little bitty kids as opposed to people y'all age. So a little bitty kid needs some, this poor baby, we gonna help them out. But some overgrown person, it's gonna be a lot different. So that's why like sometimes like charities and stuff, right? They'll use little bitty kids like so Shriners and stuff. They haven't got me to donate any money yet, but they be putting these little cute, adorable little kids and stuff, saying all little cute, adorable stuff on TV. Like, if you just give me $2 and such, I'm like, oh, God damn it. Damn, shorty, make a persuasive case. I ain't gonna do it today, but I might help you out next week. So those kind of things definitely can play a role. And Jakira's point about, race and gender, it plays a huge role. Keep in mind what we talked about on Tuesday with some of these jury trials and stuff like that, we don't help victims like Trayvon Martin as much as we do some other victims. That's not just me talking. So what you talked about there, excellent, Maisha. Unfortunately, it shouldn't be this way. But if you fit the culture standards, again, each culture has its different standards. Physically attractive people are more likely to get help than those who look like me. There's also, though, interpersonal attractiveness. like your personality. The degree to which you're responsible for the situation. So when I talked about children before, a homeless child is more likely even to get help than a homeless adult. And this don't mean that the homeless adult is strictly responsible for their situation, but we feel like they're more responsible. They have more choice and agency than a child does. Children can't help the situations they're in, so we want to help them. Adults we're a lot less sensitive to. Again, keep this in mind for yourself. Jakira, I don't want you just helping the cute boys to study it. When you're in grad school next year, you can help out some of the other dudes as well. But you're probably more likely, when we talk about the grad school example, you'll be more likely to help a classmate that you see is really working hard and grinding, as opposed to a classmate that you know ain't never tried to do nothing. So those situational variables help. Again, keep this in mind for when you all need help. Like hell, it's students, man. Students be coming asking us for all types of stuff and grades all the time. The situations help determine a lot of that, dog. You really need to know that. A student who we see, okay, you may have made a mistake or had a slip up or two, but you really have been sincerely working and grinding out. I mean, you get more help and favors than students who don't do that stuff. So be mindful about how you all can create the situation the same way again in your families. It was a child who has shown some consistent responsibility and maybe has had some, maybe occasional slip ups, is going to get more parental help than your brother who's just always in trouble. It ain't your parents just being mean. The situations have the same way that the situations have an impact upon when we give help, they also have an impact upon when we receive help. We also more likely to help people that are like us. I'll let you get this down and then I'll break it down in more detail in a moment. Are there any questions or comments so far? Any questions or comments so far? I know you all are getting here with a lot of information today. Please go back and review this lecture and review the book and your notes. Next week, we're going to talk about the social psychological factors that influence people to become aggressive. And you'll see a lot of similarities there. So make sure, again, you're seeing the connections here and study closely when you see concepts like identity fusion that you see in italics. And again, as I continue to beg and plead, don't just write this stuff down. Take some time to really understand it. When you all have made that time, you've shown yourselves to be brilliant in that regard. So continue to trust yourself. But go back and review some of this stuff over the weekend. It shouldn't take you much time. Like, just give it a glance, 15, 20 minutes. Just to kind of like, rejog your memory with some of this stuff. See how it connects to other chapters. So again, the whole chapter is talking about why we help, when we help, what are our psychological benefits of helping. So in determining who we help, some of the things that influence that are people, again, we know and care about. We talked about exchange theory in terms of relationships in the previous chapter before the break. So again, those that you have, like, we talked about communal relationships. So in, sections of Miami, in neighborhoods of Atlanta, people help each other out all the time. If they, again, have a relationship with that person. People are more likely to help people that are similar to themselves. So Black people are more likely to help other Black people. Jewish people are more likely to help other Jewish people. Mothers are more likely to help other mothers. And again, if there's a situation where you're a mother, Maisha, and there are certain things, you got an employee that is trying to balance, work and motherhood. You may be more likely to help somebody like that because, you understand that experience when you become a mother. And you're more likely to help people in your in-group. You're more likely, if you see something happen in 5 Points and you see somebody with an Allen t-shirt, you probably are more likely to help them than, students from other institutions. More likely to help, people in your fraternities. And related to this is the concept of identity fusion, where again, like there's certain groups that you strongly identify with. So again, as a Black person, I definitely that's a huge part of my personal identity, my relationship with that larger community. So I don't even see it as separate, like as, okay, I'm helping Jakira, I'm helping Maisha, like, now it's one thing. The only way for me to help myself is to help my group. If the group ain't right, how am I gonna be okay? But we also got to be mindful about this, right? Like, I know I've been like this at times where I have been too proud to get help. But this has come because there have been people in my life, Jakira, that have helped, and they try and hoard it almost they try and hold it over your head, if you will, or hold it as a sign of superiority. I don't want that kind of help. So it's like, look, I want you to help. I want you to look out. I can't take your help for granted, Jakira. Like, I can't do that. But I don't need you to remind me how much you help. I don't need you to remind me of, like, what a weak position I was in asking for your help. I understand all that. So that makes it, and we got to be mindful about this ourselves, because it'll make it where people will be less likely to ask for your help when they need it. That, again, most parents, they help their children unconditionally. But there'll be some that will be like, reminding you, like, hey, I did this for you and I didn't. Like, all right, cool. You know what? So when you become parents, I don't want you all to do now. Your parents are going to do some of that. And that's oftentimes because, Maisha, you will forget sometimes. You up here, how come y'all do this? How come? Like, what? Let me remind you all the things that we actually have done for you while you up here complaining that we didn't buy you a Mercedes-Benz for graduation, Jakira. You acting all spoiled and brand new. So let me remind you of all the things that's been happening these past 4 years that I was doing when you up here acting like we hate you because we didn't get you 2021 bids. I do hope your parents get you a 2021 bids, but it don't mean that they don't love you if they don't. But we've all been there. I know I have, where there have been some things that I have absolutely taken for granted. Like, hey, why won't y'all just give me $50,000? Like, why is y'all tripping? Fuck. Our gender has a huge impact upon helping and getting help. It's men. So when you have sons, the men in your lives, your brothers, your boyfriends, your homies, it be times, Maisha, where we be needing all types of help, and we don't really be asking for it. It's done. We know it. I personally am trying to get better about that, but it's challenging. And these are things that as men and women, we it's really important we understand about each other. Particularly, again, we talked the last chapter about relationships. That understanding that about your mate is really important. Men are much more likely to help, though, if we feel like we're in a competition with another man to help. So Maisha, like, you get a little bit chilly or something, like, dudes gonna be stabbing each other to try and, like, put their jackets over the warm. Man, I won't warm them up. No, I'm warming up, dog. Damn, calm down. Women, conversely, are more likely to provide social support. In general, more empathetic. This is not universal. Not every woman is empathetic. Not every man is apathetic. Because overall, there does not seem to be gender differences in which gender is more likely to help. We may help in different ways, but on average, particularly for those that we love and care for, we're pretty equitable in that regard. As we get ready to close, again, collectivist cultures, and again, ours is an individualistic culture where you're expected pretty much to succeed and fail on your own. And even in collectivist cultures, like I talked about in much of Asia, Africa, the help goes mainly for group members, Maisha. It's not necessarily for everybody. So if you're a Shia Muslim growing up in Iraq, you're more likely to help other Shia, but not as many people from outside of the group. This where, like, a lot of times Black people will marvel in like the togetherness of many immigrant populations that come over to the United States. This is oftentimes, again, related to their culture, although I would really challenge people to revisit these ideas because Black people help each other a lot more than we're giving credit for. The reason why Black people were brought into slavery is that, they tried to use Native Americans and Native Americans died off very quickly. It's not because they were weak or anything like that. There were some diseases that they hadn't been exposed to. There had been a lot of European and African interaction for generations, so our immune systems were able to stand up to it. But had we not stuck together, a lot more of us would have died off than would have otherwise. And as a final point with that, they were even very deliberate about the out-group membership, because a lot of times, Shakira, we think about, okay, that they just enslaved all these Black people. That's not how Africans saw themselves. They saw themselves by different tribal and ethnic backgrounds. Xhosa, Zulu, Nok, Khoikhoi, Soninke. So these are African tribes. The slave masters would make it, Maisha, where you would not be with somebody from your tribe. You would be with other Black people, but it'd be somebody that speaks a very different language, got different religious beliefs, lived in a whole other side of Africa than you lived in. But even through that, we worked together quite a bit to survive. And we continue to do so. We need to do better. We need to do better. We need to do better. But we have not done as poorly as sometimes the crab in a barrel metaphor would suggest. Closing up, again, helping requires a recognition of individual human beings with whom we have a meaningful connection. When we talk about, and you not only do you not need to write down this whole quote by John Donne, please don't write it down. But what it speaks to, right, when we talk about who we help and who we should not help, a lot of it just comes down to, Jakira, like recognizing another person's fundamental humanity. And a lot of times we see other people, particularly Maisha, people that don't look like us, that don't speak like us, that don't dress like us. And we feel like those people don't deserve help. So again, like, it just, even more than the George Zimmerman murder, and that's what he did, he committed murder. As shocking as that was, like, I'm used to that kind of thing, unfortunately. The very idea that all those people could go into the jury room and not have any kind of empathy and see Trayvon Martin as the victim that he was, for them not to see him in that way, it still continues to blow my mind. Like, there are many cases where I feel like, okay, like, the Minnesota case, like with George Floyd. I'm scared, Maisha. I'm scared they're gonna let these cops walk again. I'm gonna be so disappointed if that happens, man. Oh my God. But it keeps happening because, again, it be people that look at this evidence for themselves and they feel like a George Floyd, a Trayvon Martin, a Breonna Taylor is not as worthy of life as other people. We need to do better about that in the society. And we can't change our society, but we can change ourselves. So as we go through this chapter, I will encourage you to really think about this, because again, even though I don't want you to write down the quote, you've heard most of this before, that no man is an island. Everybody needs help from somebody at some point. The strongest, baddest, wealthiest person is going to need some assistance. One day that may be you, and I hope that you're treated in the humanity with that you try and treat other people as you go through and decide who and who not to help. Next time, we're going to talk about aggression, and keep in mind the focus of this chapter is going to be, we don't believe, Maisha, that people are born aggressive. What social factors cause a person to become aggressive or non-aggressive? Keep in mind, as we close on this, right, we're going to talk about aggression of a violent nature. So we see far too many of these shootings of public facilities and stuff, where people, again, will go into a facility and just shoot everybody, people that they don't know. We see more of that than we should. But aggression is not only relegated to violence. So keep this in mind as well. Please try and read ahead a little bit for this chapter on Tuesday. And if there are no further questions, I'll see you all at that time.